All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our Thursday, usually on our Thursday, now Monday evening Date with History series. And we're so excited that everybody is joining us on a Monday and not our regularly scheduled Thursday. As usual, before we jump into this evening's presentations, I always like to give you a preview of what is coming up next here at Cantini Park. So let's kick that off, because I have a lot to cover tonight, everybody. So first and foremost, coming up on Sunday, May 28th, apologize for the typo, we have the 105th anniversary of the Battle of Cantini here at the park. Now, there will be family activities happening at the 1st Division Museum starting from 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock, but there are two key standout activities I wanted to point out to everybody tonight. And number one is at 11 a.m. wreath-laying ceremony, which will be right out here by our Doughboy statue. Additionally, at 4 p.m. here in the Visitor Center Theater, we're going to have a special presentation by Brett Hawks. He has a presentation called Cycling to Find My Grandfather's Battlefields, where he's going to share his journey through the village of Cantini today and locating spots that his grandfather served there over 105 years ago. Next, coming up on the docket, I'm super excited about our special summer exhibit that we have here at Cantini Park in the 1st Division Museum, which is called 65 Years. Now, this exhibit is absolutely amazing, and I'm excited to share it with you because we have over 400 artifacts that are going to be on display in the lobby of the 1st Division Museum, covering the history of the 1st Infantry Division Museum and the veterans. Now, if you'd like to get like a sneak preview, VIP experience viewing of that exhibit, you can do so by joining us at our exhibit opening party on Thursday, June 1st. Highly suggest that if you want that VIP experience with the exhibit. Next, on Wednesday, June 14th, we have Stars and Stripes Family Night, which of course helps us celebrate the Army's birthday. If you have little ones in your life, that is a great night to bring them out to the park to learn about our local area veterans in our neighborhood. It's going to be a night filled with music and activities and fun ways for you and your family can connect with local area veterans. And you wouldn't let me go down here without talking about the next Date with History. Well, you notice that we are not going to be having a Date with History this upcoming June. We are going to be back to our regular schedule in July. On Tuesday, July 11th, we are going to have No Sacrifice Too Great, the 1st Infantry Division in World War II, which is a new book by Colonel Greg Fontenau, and we're so excited to bring that with you today. I'd like to bring up our speaker next. His name is Staff Sergeant David Bellavia. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for heroic efforts on November 10th, 2004, during the 3rd Battle in Fallujah. Dramatic efforts that saved the lives of his unit members. He served 3 military campaigns, Kosovo in 2003, and Operation Iraqi Freedom I, and Operation Iraqi Freedom II. Today, he is active traveling the country as a speaker, sharing the important message of service over self, and as a sought-after source for national media. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Staff Sergeant David Bellavia.
Hey, thank you. Thanks. Thank you. That's really kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind, and I appreciate that. There we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Audio Man. Thank you as well for doing that. I want to thank the folks at this amazing institution that we have to remind more people exists. The artifacts, the legacies. You know, I'm so proud to be a veteran of the 1st Infantry Division. I loved being a veteran of the Big Red One. We had our own movie with Luke Skywalker, and nobody had any question as to how Lee Marvin was a 62-year-old squad leader. Do you ever notice that? The man had all white hair, and he's running around with a bunch of 20-year-olds. Like, what is that, a DUI, retention control? Like, what happened there? One of those Spec 5s, you know, whatever. But I love that movie, and I loved Sam Beckett. I loved the 1st Infantry Division, and what that meant, because I grew up in Western New York, Buffalo, right outside of Buffalo, and growing up for me, veterans were put on a pedestal. I know there's some places in the country that look at service as being, you know, you got someone pregnant, you couldn't get into college, whatever the negative connotations were. For me, veterans were people that served, that were honorable, that were productive members of society, and it meant a lot when a veteran walked by. And so that's how I was raised. And so naturally, my heroes have always been in Fort Benning, Georgia. You're shining your boots and you see these citations and you're reading about Melvin Brown. Melvin Brown was 5'3". He died in the Korean War and he beat Chinese communists with a shovel. That was a bad idea in 1953. It's a bad idea in 2023. That's what America is all about. 5'3". Who knows who this guy is? Right? So who's the legacy of that recipient? Is it the individual themselves that we have to remember and genuflect to what they did? Or is it there's something about us in our DNA? Now, my granddad is still alive, and last week my grandfather celebrated his 103 years of age. That's incredible. Normandy campaign, he got, I think, D-Day plus 28, he was with Patton. So he was he got the campaign, he got the hedgerows. And he tells me these stories of how once the landing at Normandy occurred, they used where so many brave men at Omaha and Utah lost their lives, they used it as a depot where they had a lot of supplies and they were bringing in that supply chain. And how he would watch, you know, seagulls fighting over pressure dressings. How areas where men had obviously been hurt and hit, and how they were just supposed to pass that through like nothing happened. That they were aware at such a young age that something holy had occurred there, that something incredibly worthy of notice and attention occurred there, but their job was to go and fight. And most Americans had no idea the beach landing was so dramatic. The beach landing had so much sacrifice. Most people don't even know that the hedgerow campaigns were insane, the hedgerow campaigns. The standoff distance was crazy, and how it took an E5 in the United States Army to weld a plow onto a tank. We turned the hedgerow campaign with a guy with a welding certification on a tank. That's America. Yes. That's America. That's the American warrior. Chinese, the Russians, you take out their leaders, they sit around. I mean, hell, the Russians wanted to be here today. They ran out of gas. They couldn't make it, unfortunately. But I've been spending a whole lot of time of my life training for those Russians. Those Soviets during the Cold War, what did they tell you? Germany, they're coming from both. It's going to be rough. Here they come. And I'm thinking to myself, well, did we overhype this? Or this just what America does? Get ready. You never know when that punch is going to come. But my granddad told me stories from way too young to be sharing stories from World War II with a 6-year-old. You want to give them nightmares at a whole new level? Granddad was that man. I remember I went hunting with my father, and I was low right on the target. My grouping wasn't bad for a kid with a .22 rifle, but my dad's like, we got to bring this up center mass. And I said, well, Papa says that the femoral artery is actually right there on the hip bone, and that's where we want. And that's when my dad was like, hey, Papa, no more stories to a 6-year-old about where the bleeders are. Wildly irresponsible. But he was right. Granddad was right. And it turned out that is the truth. But the case is that Tom Brokaw told me that my granddad was the greatest generation of American, right? The greatest generation of American. I thought about that for the longest time because I joined a Big Red One that wasn't fighting. My Big Red One was peacekeeping, right? And we went to Kosovo with the Big Red One, and we had to pretend it was much more serious than Kosovo was. We had to make up stories to our subordinates. That man over there, Omar Hardaway, and I, my battle buddy from Germany, we spent 3 years together in the first ID. And Omar, you remember this, Sergeant Hardaway? We would be like, Mr. Mehmedi's chickens have been stolen, okay? This is go time. This is what you've trained your whole lives for. I don't know what is going to happen when we get outside of that chicken coop. It could be pretty horrible. But I want you to know, if this man should fall, who is going to carry the camcorder to make sure that our parents see us rescue the real person who killed these chickens? It was wild. It was just made up, and we just created all these scenarios because we missed our war. Afghanistan, Iraq, it was kicking off, and we were the first infantry division that wasn't going to fight. I had leaders and officers and NCOs. Peter Newell, Dana Petard, who'd go on to make 3 stars. I had Stephen Falkenberg. I had Stephen Bone. I had Peter Smith. And by the way, his name is not Bond. We called him Sergeant Major Bond. No, it's Bone. Isn't that crazy? You didn't even know it was Sergeant Major's name. Stolen valor. No, I know, you're legit. But anyway, these are men and women in our S2 shop. We had intel, female. We didn't work with female officers or female NCOs. All these people coming together, getting us ready for something we didn't expect to happen. We were going to get a fight. We were Kosovo and Iraq wasn't going to happen. And then it happened. And rather than do 6 months in Kosovo, we did 9 months in Kosovo. And instead of sitting around looking at chickens getting stolen and watching dogs reproduce, we trained and we fired bullets and we got out there and we were ready for it. And we learned and depended on each other. And I'll tell you what, it's weird to tell civilians, especially, you like before you trust as a civilian. And then you trust before you love. At least Johnny Depp screwed that whole thing up during his trial. We all learned that maybe he should have trusted before he loved, if you know what I mean. But we learn as civilians that we gotta like before we trust. And in the military, veterans, we trust on day one. We still don't really like each other, Omar, when you think about it. But we trust each other. And one thing I was never able to do in my 20s is tell my friends that I love them. I couldn't do it. I couldn't articulate it. And now that I'm old, I don't have a problem doing that. And the reason why I'm able to tell you with authority that Tom Brokaw's full of garbage, the greatest generation is a generation that served their country, that got treated like crap, that got spit upon and disrespected. And when we came home, when their sons came home from Afghanistan and Iraq, the greatest generation of America protected us from the treatment they got when they served in Vietnam. That is the greatest generation of American alive today. That's the greatest generation of American. I'll tell you what, you spit on me, I'm going to give you a speech impediment, all right? I ain't going to love you. I ain't going to hug you, and I'm not going to do anything. We came home in the Atlanta airport, and those Vietnam vets all lined up. And they made sure they stood between protesters and us. They made sure we didn't get what they got. And that's beautiful. So if you're a Vietnam vet and you have the ability to acknowledge your service, would you please do that right now so we could say to you, any Vietnam vets in here? God bless you. God bless you. I grew up in Western New York. Gary Biker was our Medal of Honor recipient, and I grew up idolizing that man. And he told me, I get the Medal of Honor, I get all this attention, and I'm like, what do you do when someone thanks you for your service? What are you supposed to say? Like, I had time on my hands, college wasn't working out. I was just doing my thing, What do you say when someone thanks you for your service? You're welcome. That sounds like pompous, doesn't it? You're welcome. You know what? I did it. Yes, you're welcome. I had time, and I thought, there's some communists that need shooting. That's what I'm going to do for you. And Gary said, look him in the eye, make eye contact with him and say you're worth it. And that completely changed. And you want to break some people's brains in Los Angeles. Look them in the eye after they say thank you for your service and be like, you're worth it, sir. That's like skipping someone sneezes and you're like, no, God bless you, just Jesus loves you. Like you want to break their brain? They're like, what's wrong with that guy? What about we just skip the whole God thing and just go right to Jesus died for all of us? Okay there, not a problem. You're worth it it just broke my brain. And it breaks other people's brains. But it's ultimately why we do what we do, right? What is the point of this? I wrote a book called Remember the Rembrandts. If you read House to House, it's a book, a very angry guy wrote that book. I went to war, and I didn't know what was happening. And I just did my thing, and I come home, and they're like, you're nominated for the Medal of Honor. That's what I'm told, that I'm nominated for the Medal of Honor. And remember Susan Lucci? Nominated for 23 daytime Emmys, never gets it. It's an honor to be nominated, right? What are you supposed to do after 20 years of people start to think, I don't believe your story, dude. I don't think it happened like that. I think those people, maybe had heart attacks. I don't think you had anything to do with it. I think a lot of people are making up propaganda and BS. I don't believe it. So you kind of feel like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. You're telling everyone I'm getting an award, and you're not giving it to me. So either it's not going to happen, it shouldn't happen. My life was perfect, and it was great. And then you get the phone call one day, and you're like, everything is going to change in your life. And oh, by the way, now everyone knows everything. And you're like, I had a coworker come up to me and said, there's a guy with your name getting the Medal of Honor. And I'm like, I'm still working out. I know I'm not like intimidating you, but I'll give you a limp at least, What is that? A guy with your name? I realized that my relationships with the guys that I served with, I thought I missed combat. I thought I missed war. And I didn't miss war. I didn't miss getting shot at. I missed my people. But more importantly, I missed my sense of purpose. I didn't need a governor to tell me I was essential. I had a rifle and a uniform, and everyone knew what we were supposed to do. That was love, unconditional love. And my friends, my family, we cancel each other's vote out in November, right? None of us agree. We don't like the same ball clubs or the same teams. We don't even like each other half the time, if we can be honest. But man, do we love each other. And that weird thing in combat where you can love, hate, and respect at the same time because the alternative is death. Like, what are you supposed to do? I love you, I hate you, you're annoying, you breathe through your mouth. You clip your toenails while making eye contact with me. It's weird. That's our life. That's who we are. That's our family, dysfunctional and all. And we go out there and we fight, and I'm like, I miss that. You miss mortars. You miss cordite. I miss people. I miss my people. I miss waking up every day knowing this is what I'm supposed to do. And my dad was a dentist. I'm the youngest of three. Everyone has a master's degree. And all I wanted to do was be a soldier because everyone I respected knew that they could handle their business when they were veterans. I never ran into a veteran. I remember this story. These guys went for a job interview, and the big boss was going to hire whoever they're going to hire. And he put everyone's in their best suit with their little, ready for their interview in this waiting room. And the guy puts a big dish of powdered donuts in the middle of the boardroom. And finally, this vet just grabs a powdered donut, eats it, and the guy's like, you're hired. And I'm like, I think he's going to be a horrible air traffic controller, by the way. I don't know if that's a qualifying feature. Maybe that's the problem they're having at Delta. But my thing is that I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, that's it. That's the secret sauce. You're not afraid of anything. Anything. There's a really cute guy or girl at the end of the bar. You're not going to get the number? Are you kidding me? Do you know how many relationships veterans are breaking up every single day? They fear nothing. You want something, you think to yourself, hey, look, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to make a mistake. I'm not afraid that you get offended. I'm not afraid of anything. I know what I can do. I know why I'm here. And all I want to do is do an opportunity to do the best I can do. I just want to be a participant, an individual in your community. Will you allow me to be an individual in your community? I missed that. So I get a phone call, and it's like, you're getting the Medal of Honor, and you're going to be the only living recipient, the first and only recipient from the Iraq War. There's no other person. It's going to be you. So now it's not just a Medal of Honor. Now it's the mascot of a war that, let's be honest, not the most popular of wars. Not since, where is anyone, weapons of mass destruction, the war of choice, all this stuff that they're going to throw out there. And I thought, you know what I got to do? I got to do this with my guys. I got to go back and find like the Blues Brothers. I got to put the band back together. And we're going to make a push for Tehran right after that. That's what we're going to do, right? I'm going to get all the guys back, and I'm going to say, hey, let's do this together. Now I realized I was being super selfish because this was happening to me, and I was making him and everyone else go back to a place that they didn't necessarily want to go to. But I needed it. I needed them. I knew this was not something that I was going to be able to navigate unless I had my tribe, my family back. And they did it. They did it because they loved me. And they did it because they thought that I needed them, and I did. And not everyone went through that journey well. Not everyone was ready to do that, and I understand that. But I look at veteran suicide, I look at a lot of problems with veterans, and I'm like, we have to constantly remind each other that we have a purpose. We have to constantly remind each other that there's value in our day-to-day, that we are needed, that we are a part of the team, that we are bringing something to the table, and more importantly, America, you want veterans in your community. You want veterans at your job. You want veterans mentoring your kids. You want veterans in teaching and coaching. You need veterans. You want veterans. You need veterans. America needs to rely on that warrior class once again to get us through this craziness. Because this is just, it's nuts. And nobody wants to think that they peaked in their 20s. No one wants to think that their best times of their lives are over. And we think that. We think that war was our ultimate. And the reality is, it was the relationships, it was a sense of purpose. But I think we truly start serving when we come home. That the uniform stuff was just a practice. This is service. Every single day we walk outside and find a world that cannot communicate, that's offended by everything you say, that all of a sudden, I'm afraid, I gotta watch my words. Watch your words. That's something I never hear a person over 70 ever say. You know what I'm afraid? I'm afraid of what comes out of my mouth is gonna be offensive to you. Said no one over 72, ever. We have, I think, a tendency, especially with this generation coming up, that, we forget that the world, when COVID happened, I started to do a lot of reading about just what we were complaining about now as opposed to what was happening during the Spanish flu. And I found so many similarities. Like the World War I generation, when talking about their children, said how worthless they were and how lazy they were and how all they wanted to do was dance and drink and chase each other around. And that's the generation, of course, that everyone genuflects is so great. And they crushed Imperial Japan. They beat the Third Reich. And then they have kids, and they're like, our kids are lazy and stupid and worthless. They can't get their sideburns even. They don't make their beds. They're horrible. And it's like the Vietnam generation that doesn't lose a battle, not a fight in their war, right? So now you take that generation, and they raise us, and they tell us, you play PlayStation 1 15 hours a day. You're in your basement, you're a couch potato. You're lazy, you're Gen X. Why do you listen to Kurt Cobain? You just cut your pants with a razor blade for no reason. Make eye contact with me. Why do you have so many layers of shirts on? Are you trying to be Steve Bannon? What are you doing? And now we get free tickets to SeaWorld. We're the heroes of September 11th because we got tested. Like mom and dad did during Vietnam, like grandpa did in World War II, and his father and mother before him. Every American's going to get tested, and every American's going to answer the call. So what are we doing? We're just making us feel better about being old by goofing on the young kids coming up, right? That's why when the new soldier came to the unit, you put him out there asking him to try to find weak spots on an Abrams tank with a hammer. Right? You made him go to find grid squares. I need 5 grid squares. Can you go get those for me, Private Snuffy? What were some of the things? That's what we did. We goof on the new guy. We goof on the young kids, and it makes us feel better. But we have to remind our young people that whether you need America, agree with America, disagree with America, that this country is not what your problems are with. That America is still the shining city on the hill. That the world needs America. More than you might need America, the world needs America. And the world needs Americans to dream and invent. I mean, I don't think the Chinese would have any products without the American minds and intellectual property of our fine citizens. But the world needs us to do more than just work and dream. The world needs our power. The world needs our decency. The world needs American morality. The world needs America to continue to be what we have been since our inception. We've got issues. We got to fix our issues. Absolutely. I'm all about that. But we also have to fix our relationships. We probably have to fix our waistline. There's a lot of things that we have to fix. And just because it's difficult doesn't mean we're going to stop trying. Doesn't mean we're going to be more perfect. But veterans are going to be the demographic that are going to heal us. Because you know what? We serve with people who didn't look like us. We serve with people who didn't worship the way we worship. We served with people who, in my generation, we didn't ask, we didn't tell. But we saw what music you were listening to. We had a pretty good idea. You were my family. I don't care who you love. I don't care how you identify or what your pronouns are. I mean, you want to worry about that? We got people trying to kill us. I need you. I need you right here. Every reason you want to come up with why we're different, why our tribes are at each other's throats, why my jersey is different color than your jersey, how is that going to stop the rocket machine gun fire about to hit us both? I'm going to tell you this right now. I can't promise you anything. But I can promise you that if you stand by my side, I'm not leaving yours. And I can promise you that on your scariest, most frightened moment in your life, we are going to be right next to each other, and our boots are going to hit that door simultaneously. And if Lucifer himself is playing solitaire, smoking a cigarette, we're going to boot him in the chest together. Whatever you do, I will do with you. I am with you. Come hell or high water, we're together. Now, if that is offensive to you, if you can't handle that, I don't think you're ever going to get it. I'm going to stop wasting time explaining it to you. All I'm asking you to do is stand on the other side of the auditorium. The rest of us that understand that, we got work to do. Because obviously, we've got to do some heavy lifting for our friends that don't wish to participate anymore. That's on the other side of the room. But the other side has to remind young people that America is the way we get through this. The vehicle to decency, the vehicle to treating people with respect, this diversity, inclusion. You know why we did it in the Army? Not for promotion. You treat people with dignity and respect to get promoted? That's the worst soldier in the world. Why do you treat people with dignity and respect? So that people can see me treating people with dignity and respect. Duh. I do it so that I look like I'm treating people with decency, which is the wrong reason you do that. You do it because it's your actual obligation as a human being. You do it because we're professional soldiers. We're not Chinese. We're not Russians. We don't kill because of thrill. We don't shoot because it's cool. We don't steal or take advantage because we're in a position of power and it's fun to use it on people who can't defend themselves. We're American professional warriors. And I am sick and tired of pretending that we don't have a purpose in this world. I regret we have a purpose. I regret that we're really good at what we have a purpose to do. But you know what? This world isn't going to change. So why should we? Stand our ground. The Navy's out there doing their thing in the South China Sea, and it's amazing when the 7th Fleet shows up, we find out how fast the Chinese aircraft group can go backwards. It's really amazing. The aircraft carrier can go forwards and backwards at a ridiculous speed. And they're always evading and trying to get away from our Navy. It's amazing at the discipline of our aviators and what our aviators are able to do every single day. People, for whatever reason, want to get you worried. They want to freak you out. They want to grow division and make us think that the world is going to end. I'm telling you right now, I've been around the country. I'm traveling all the time. I'm talking to people. I don't believe anything that's going on in cable news. I run into people that are constantly telling me, God bless America, kick ISIS in the ass, go after Al-Qaeda, what's up with Putin, what's up with China, who cares, take my son and daughter. And we have a recruiting crisis, we've got a retention crisis, and we have to remind Americans again that if you give us your son and daughter, we are going to love them like they're our own. Like this division loved me, we're going to love your son and daughter. Because colleges are breeding perpetual adolescence. It's Peter Pan syndrome on universities across America. Everyone wants to, adult coloring books sold out on Amazon. I met a 52-year-old that wants to drop a rap album. At 52, his first rap album. And if you haven't discovered in 52 years that might not be a vocation, maybe now's not the time to do it. But the reality is that we crush adolescents in the dust in the United States military. We make men, we make women, and they will shoulder the burdens of this world. And these men and women that the U.S. military creates are the ones you are going to depend on to bail us out when it comes to energy, to fix our financial crisis, to worry about pandemics and everything else out there that makes people scared to go to sleep at night. We sleep like babies when uninterrupted because we understand that at the end of the day, we can be tested, we will be tested, we do things together. We're individuals in a community. That's the lessons I've learned. That's why we need America's military to be strong. We need America. And when we're arguing these issues with people that don't see the world the same way, they're not a threat. They're not an enemy. You got Bears fans in here? I don't get it. I don't get it. But it doesn't threaten me. We disagree on that. Let's focus on what we agree on. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. Tremaine Edmonds is maybe the best middle linebacker in football, and you got him. God bless you. Let's find something we agree on and stop finding reasons why we're divided. That's not how we did anything in uniform. It's not how we're going to do anything as civilians. We can fix this. We read the book. We know how it ends. Stop with the games and realize right now that we have to nurture a generation to see America as more important as themselves. That's our number one priority. Young people have to trust institutions. Young people have to trust adults. And young people have to see America as more important than themselves. And that's a challenge with this generation. That's what we have to do. We have to foment belief and trust and fidelity again and remind people that no matter what you do to me, you are not going to touch American citizens. I tell you that no matter how you see the world, you know, America's going to go. We're not even in the bottom of the ninth. You know, people talk about, like, have we gone to the bullpen yet, using the baseball metaphor. We still have the starting pitcher in from 9/11. We're still in this fight. we're not going to go quietly into the night. I want to thank this museum. I want to thank all you veterans. I want to thank the Big Red One. I apologize to anyone in the 82nd Airborne. I understand it's difficult. People see AA and realize that's not Alcoholics Anonymous. That's all American, even though you are the most physically fit alcoholics I've ever met in my life. You're not AA for the other one. God bless our Army, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, all that good stuff. But Big Red One, we have a museum. We have this institution. Let's support it. Let's give them artifacts. Let's carry that legacy. 400,000 young people died for this country at Arlington Cemetery. They are our shared legacy. They died for us. We need to live for them. God bless you all. Any questions? We'll take those right now.
All right, everybody. Really quickly, I want to thank you again. David is going to be ready to take some questions now. Really quickly, before we jump into our Q&A, some P's and Q's about Q&A. If you do have a question, we're going to get to as many questions as possible this evening. You can let us know that you have a question by raising your hand, old-fashioned way, just like school. But please do not ask your questions until my friend Jackie or my friend Javier have handed you the microphone. That is how our guests virtually on Zoom are going to hear your amazing question. If you are joining us virtually on Zoom, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to send in questions. I'll be fielding those. And again, we're going to get to as many questions as possible this evening. So I'll open it up to the floor first. All right, Miss Jackie, I have one here in the center. She's coming for you.
Good evening, sir. My name is Eric Rounder. I'm Lieutenant Commander in the Navy. You're honestly the first Medal of Honor recipient I ever met. Understanding you're an Iraqi freedom veteran, I too am an Iraqi freedom veteran. I was assigned to work with U.S. Army I Corps as an individual augmentee. We had 1st Division underneath us. I just wondered, did at any time when you were in Iraq, did you work with any U.S. sailors in any capacity?
You know, it's always like you guys to ask, what do you think about us, you know? Enough about you. What do you think about me? No, my cousin, I have a cousin who's a corpsman, and I'm really proud of Ryan. He's a beautiful kid. I got a nephew who's a Marine. Not as proud of him to be. No, he's a wonderful kid too. So I've got family that served. You know, the Navy. Growing up, the Navy had a recruiting poster, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It said, "Life, liberty, and the pursuit of those who threaten it." And I was like, I want that. Like, I want to do that. But unfortunately, it meant I had to be in the Navy. And so. But you know, the truth of the matter is, of all the branches, if you were to compare the Army, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, all the branches of service against threats out there, the one branch of service that has no equal, I mean, first and second place is between here and Buffalo, is the United States Navy. Air Force, you got a lot of, you know, 5th generation fighters, pilots, who knows what could happen. The Army, you never know, with armor and equipment and whatnot, but the Navy is, no one can really touch us. And if the world is, you know, going to continue to hum along, it's going to be because our Navy's doing their things. I did work with some SEALs in Ramadi in 2006. I was embedded and did some work with them. You know, just great, awesome guys. Got to hang out with Jocko and his crazy podcast. He's awesome. SEALs are a different breed. They really are. They're a different breed, but they're proud and they do their part. It's one big family and one big team. I just think we're better than you, if that's cool. You know, and I mean that humbly with love and respect. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the audience? All right, Jackie's coming for you.
Thank you. Could you discuss, sir, your military background and possibly a little bit about your deployment where you received the Medal of Honor award?
Yeah, that should have been the whole point of the talk. Good notes. I don't know what I was doing. For some reason, I thought it was a job interview, and I was asking to marry your daughter, and I apologize. No, I served. So I joined in '99, and I got. So it would have been at the tail end of the Bosnia Kosovo adventures for the Army and NATO forces. I had a duty assignment, and then 9/11 happened. I got sent over to recruiting. It did way too much time in a recruiting battalion, which will get you ready for combat in a heartbeat. Recruiting is one of the toughest jobs out there. God bless recruiters. I'd rather volunteer to be a POW than be a recruiter. That's a really tough job. And those folks worked their tail off. And I ended up in Germany, and at a time when the 1st Infantry Division really didn't have the bite that it used to have. There was a time when going to Iraq, we were just talking about this with Omar Hardaway. Well, Omar, when we were going to Iraq, we didn't think we were going to get a CIB, a Combat Infantryman's badge, or a combat badge. They were telling us peacekeepers. That's all you're going to do is peacekeep, sustain. And so luckily we had leadership and NCOs that got us ready to fight, regardless of what they were saying, the rumor mill. But that deployment, we were in a Bradley fighting vehicle at a time when a lot of people thought the Abrams tank doesn't belong in an urban fight. The Bradley fighting vehicle is not conducive to an urban fight. I think the war in Iraq changed that mentality. We probably spent more times beating up tankers than we did, the enemy, because tankers and infantrymen hate each other. But at this point in time, after Iraq, tankers and infantrymen, we're going to look at apartments together because we're very much in love. They are wonderful, wonderful assets. If you can use a tank the right way in an urban battlefield, I'm going through that main gun round, and you just cleared 4 houses with a high explosive anti-tank round. And I don't have to do crazy things because you took care of that. An Abrams tank in front of you blocks you like a ballistic shield on steroids. It's really incredible. And the Bradley fighting vehicle and the high explosive 25 millimeter Bushmaster cannon, and then you throw a Spectre gunship. I mean, it's almost like it's a religious, the Pentagon gods are very good to you in an urban fight. That really helps you out a lot. We learned a tremendous amount of lessons. Fallujah is a city the size of Tampa Bay, Florida, and they fought the Marine Corps. Just disemboweled them in April, but they had civilians present in April of '04. And so because of the civilian vigilant resolve, the Al Jazeera, you had Middle Eastern news outlets that were saying that the Marines were out of control, that the civilian, it was an IO, information operations campaign, and we were losing it. So the Marines, even though they won the battle, even though they didn't get pushed off the field, they had to pull back, and it became like an old-fashioned medieval siege where you're like catapulting cows in. We just waited for 6 months outside the city. In November of 2004, we decided to make the push, but of course, we have to wait till after Bush-Kerry election because we can't have a battle before an election that would make it look political. So we're all waiting. We go house to house, door to door, and we see some of the most close quarter fighting, sustained combat, Marine Corps, Army, 27 Armored First Cav, since Way City in Vietnam. And I would make the argument that even though it was a different type of fighting than Way City, I would say that the fighting in Fallujah, there's only two, history of architecture, you got center-fed doors and corner-fed doors, right? That's it. Subterranean, attic doors, we can get into the minutia, but you got center-fed, corner-fed. I don't care if you're John Wick or the Marvel Avengers, I put a machine gun behind that door, you're gonna get punched. You're gonna get punched. And there's no way around that. It takes heart, it takes guts, it takes people that believe in each other to do their job. And it takes Bradley fighting crews that are willing to do whatever they can to make sure your kids come home. And that's what we had. We had a great team, we had great leadership, and we loved each other, and we trusted each other. And I just think America needs more of that now than ever. I really do. We won. We won. Go ahead, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just thinking of a question, needed more time.
Hi, David. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
My name is Dan Devine. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, 1968 to 77. I happen to be the commander of Post 556 here at the American Legion at Cantini. And just on dovetailing on some of your comments, we had a young man that worked with us through a local high school program. So there is hope. He is now on his way at the end of June going to the Naval Academy, and we kind of co-sponsored him.
Good,
And,
that's awesome.
He's done a really good job. And a little funny side note, I asked him today after our meeting, I said, well, I thought you were going Air Force. He says, well, funny thing, the Air Force turned me down 4 times because I had allergies. But the Navy took me right away. So I'm going to Annapolis. So,
Low standards, as
Yeah.
I've always told you.
Yeah,
They don't take
exactly.
any-
So talk about America.
This is what
you know.
everyone takes. And then
Yep.
the Navy's like, can you stand up?
Yeah.
Get on the bus. No,
Anyway.
that's awesome. Listen, we're making leaders that are going to make an impact when
Yeah.
we get home. And Annapolis, you don't go to those academies to just be normal. You go to dominate the world and lead the world, and that's what they're going to do. So God bless them. That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing it.
Really quickly to our friends who are joining us virtually on Zoom, again, please remember if you can, utilize that Q&A button at the bottom. I have opened up the chat function as well, so you should be able to send me your messages via the chat function. I do have a question from online, though, which we can get to right now. You have a very compelling story of your service. Were there any stories from the history of the 1st Infantry Division that you found inspiring?
Just mine, really. I don't even know why we're even doing the division anymore, to be honest with you. Are you kidding me? I find mine to be actually there are so many Vietnam incredible stuff. So I was in a battalion called 2-2 Infantry. We're the Ramrods, and we pretty much were in every fight since 1812. And we missed out on the Korean War like the 1st ID did. We were attached to 1st ID for quite some time. And when you get into some of those, like the Philippine insurrection, I mean, that was nuts. That was nuts. And that was tough. The campaigns with the Indians and the natives were really, really intense. I mean, look, you take all the politics, history's history. Native Americans taught this army how to fight. True story. I mean, they taught us, 19th century was industrial revolution, pat yourself on the back. But as far as war fighting goes, you're just going to pile up bodies unless you learn maneuver warfare. You can't just go attrition, head on 100 miles an hour. The natives taught Americans how to fight, and they did it. Were amazing supply, ambushes, complicated ambushes, no hand-in arm signals. If you look at the campaigns in the West during the Indian campaigns, you're going to see a whole lot of just timing. We use star clusters today and arrows and smoke, and this was complicated, this was intense, this was well rehearsed. These were professional warriors. Tons of lessons there. And unfortunately, our lessons learned are when we lose, members of this division. Bonsteel is one of my favorite guys because I remember reading his citation. Bonsteel was a staff sergeant who served in Alpha Company 2-2 Infantry, the 1st ID, in 3rd Platoon 2nd Squad. He was the 2nd Squad leader, 3rd Platoon, Alpha Company 2-2 Infantry, 1st ID in Vietnam. And that's exactly where I served. And I remember thinking to myself, if my number got called like Bonsteel, ain't no way that's going down like that. I'm going to frag out. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to, call on an AC-30 or, that guy's crazy. But like to see my position on a Medal of Honor citation was the most laughable thing in the world. It's like holding a Powerball ticket and getting hit by lightning. It's never going to happen, right? It's never going to happen. But that taught me that, you got to be ready. I'm going to tell you the honest God truth, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Of the veterans I meet, 99% of American veterans are Medal of Honor potential. They are Medal of Honor worthy. They could do everything that everyone else has done. 99%. And you're like, oh, you don't know that. I'm from Buffalo, okay? I'm telling you, you were in my situation. If you didn't do what we did in Fallujah or Bakuba, then I would actually have lost respect for you. When Americans are struggling, Americans are hurt, and innocent people are pinned down, you're going to do whatever you can to make a difference. And we see it every day in these crazy mass shootings that don't make any sense. We see it every day with people trying to rescue people that need help. That's who we are. There's decency and honor in our pedigree. It's who we are. I know it upsets a lot of people on cable news. They want to just complain about how miserable it sucks to be American. America's horrible. I get it. I understand it. I don't care. I'm telling you, I see it every day. Our country has something different than other places I've seen around the world, and it's because we have a true north, and we have a decency amongst us, and in our military, we are able to quickly evaluate and, more importantly, act. And we do so and sacrifice and bleed for people in positions that can't do it themselves. And I see it everywhere, in every branch, in every rank. Generals will die for a private, and a private will do so for someone else. We just, we're looking out for each other. It's a beautiful thing. And I see that. So this is a shared award as a generation. It's about the Iraq War veteran and what they've been able to do, what we've been able to do. It's really weird when they give it to you. You feel like, what am I, it's like Miss America. What are you going to do with this? I want to work with animals. I want to come up with a longer lasting light bulb. And I'd like to release a Christmas cookbook in the fall. I don't know what else, what am I? I'm not going to change. This is who I am. I would have appreciated to not be a professional veteran. Never really wanted to do that. I'd kind of like to move on and do other things, I'd like to play shortstop for the Yankees. That's not going to happen. But in the interim, if I could convince more parents to give us their 18-year-old sons and daughters to fight and serve our country, I'm going to do it. I don't want to deal with, I don't want anyone to see war. But I want to be assured that you are willing to do whatever you can to stand up and be kinetic towards evil. I want you to stand up and I want you to slap a bully. And if young kids are going to show up with fat lips and bloody noses because they did the right thing by standing up to someone bigger than them, I'm okay with that, America. I'm okay with that world. Sometimes you got to do that. Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I guess that's what I'll be doing. And I'll do a PowerPoint on Tuesdays in my basement, and I'll show pictures of the Iraq War that our NC-17 that you're not allowed to see. Omar and I will be also doing that, and we have a cabaret show we're working on as well.
All right, we have a question in the front.
David, thanks very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I've enjoyed your conversation,
Thank you.
Your knowledge. Military veteran, 69 to 98. The one thing I learned that carried the forces through every situation was the NCO. If you had to walk into a room of NCOs right now, what would you tell them?
I don't feel I have to tell NCOs anything. I have to tell the officers the things. I really do. And I don't mean that the officers don't have knowledge. I mean that our message is we have to talk to young officers and tell them, you're not our mascot, you're our leader. And that is a relationship that's holy. For the commissioned officer of the NCO is a holy relationship. And we want our job as a staff sergeant squad leader, Hardaway and I, our job was to make our lieutenant the greatest company commander they could be. That's our job. We don't want to embarrass you. We want you to have controlled failure. You're going to screw up, but it's controlled failure. And when I see young officers, I'm telling you, there's one unforgivable sin in combat. If you go left and you're supposed to go right, we can fix that. If you go right and you're supposed to go right, we're going to keep going right. But if you can't make a decision, you are not a soldier. You're a BDU insert at that point. You got to make a decision. You cannot be afraid to just make a call. And when you see someone free and confident enough to screw up, you've got a great officer, you got a great leader. And so my thing isn't, I don't need to tell NCOs how to be NCOs. Old NCOs have a way to do that. See, I used to tell my first sergeant, platoon sergeant, I was more afraid of you than Al-Qaeda. I got to be honest with you. All they could do is kill me. You would take my pay. You would make me do horrible tasks forever. The truth is that senior NCOs take care of our own, but we have to make sure that that young officer understands that this is what's expected of you. Embrace your NCOs. We're here to make you better. We're here to be better. But we need you to be free to make a mistake. Because controlled failure is how you're going to become great. And we want you to be great. You know, that's what it's all about. Appreciate you. Thank you for your service and leadership.
All right, we have time for one or two more questions. Javier has one in the back.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I served 2007, 2010 Army MP.
Yeah, thank you.
So I decided to go enlisted after I went to college. I wanted to serve, you know, from the point of like the actual soldier instead of going straight to officer training.
That's a unique journey. You don't hear that a lot.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it was a big risk because obviously I was like a minority in like 3 different ways. So I wanted to ask you, you know, about how you feel about hearing about, you know, veterans returning home and those who feel like they haven't had that sense of purpose. And then, you know, with the suicides increasing. I know, like, we can go to these events and feel happy, but there's people who just don't want to feel engaged with
You know,
society
but
then.
again, you're right. You're right. It's heartbreaking, but I think of it the same way as, you know, there's a lot of things that are heartbreaking. Someone right now is getting punched in the mouth. I'm going to spend the rest of my life worrying about, I would be at Christmas and Thanksgiving having an amazing time, and I think, you know, Captain Sims' wife is having a miserable time. He died. Falkenberg's wife is probably crying right now. It's Christmas, and he died. I can't sustain that. So something has to give where we can at least be allowed and they're given the permission to move on with our lives and remind people, I'm here for you, okay? But I need to know how much of this damage you had before you came into the military. I think that's a legitimate question because there's a lot of trauma that service causes, but there's a lot of people that are flawed, you know, they have damage and trauma before they get in the military, and then the military exacerbates it, and we have to deal with it. The suicide numbers are like, we're in a position to be like, we went from 22 to 17, like we're gonna have a party. You know what I mean? Like imagine that uncomfortable balloon pattern on the wall. We're down to 17 a day. Like there's nothing good about that. So we're gonna hit 1 a day, and it's still horrible. So I hate that we have gotten to the position, of course you're not doing this, you're reporting this, but I hate that we're in a position where we have to say, you know, but what about, that we don't tolerate that. You would not tolerate that as a leader on the battlefield or in your unit when someone's like, this is what we got in front of us, and you're like, why even try? I mean, honestly, if 5% of these people are knuckleheads, we're doomed. We are in a town of 500,000 people, and the intelligence says 2% of them hate our guts. Can we get a hot air balloon and float out of this town? We're done. If that is the attitude every single time we do anything, we're going to be up against it for the rest of our lives. We can't live like that.
I wanted to let you know I've never heard of you until I saw a social media video viral clip of your Medal of Honor speech. And people memorialize what you said against our enemies, and it, just so you know, it's like forever. So my question directly as an action is about, do you feel like the media might be, just the media exposure might be a way to get to our youth, get people to start paying attention? Because just to, you know, like I said, you said the recruiting numbers, but also to get engaged and feeling that pride, bringing that warrior class back to America.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more fascinated with how a person like you that has the ability to go in as an officer, that has the ability to do pretty much whatever you want to do, why you made that choice. You know what I think we need to stop telling people what we did in the military and start telling people what we did when we got out of the military. That would be my new recruiting campaign. Stop talking about the cool things you did in the Army and talk about what you did when you got out. This is what I was able to accomplish. The Army made me. when I tell young people, if you're impressed with the things I've done, thank my leaders. I am an example of my leadership. Everything you see is because I was made this way. And I was made by this way by having crusty old veterans who told me to put my hat on correctly, and that the flag was going, and I have to face it for the entirety of the flag passing me, right? That's because a veteran told me, when you see that flag, your hand goes over your heart, and if you have a hat on, you're wrong. I was just a kid. That person shaped me and made me who I am. We have to remind people that you're serving no matter what. Do you want to do it with a rifle and a grenade? I find that the easiest. Or do you want to serve as a civilian in your community, making a difference? Everyone's serving. Everyone's drafted. We're in a war. We're trying to save the culture of our country. Are you enlisting in this war, or are you going to be on the other side of it watching it? Because we're going to win the war, and it's a culture war, and it's going to be done with decency, with respect, with education, with teaching history, with reminding people that there is no one insignificant in our country. There's no one that has dominion or power over another person, regardless of how you look or worship or love or any of that garbage. Anyone who tells you that is a divisive, polarizing figure. Eliminate the negativity. Focus on the greatness of America, and that's the reason why you got 40,000 people a day risking their life to come here. Yep. That's why so many people are willing to die to float across a dangerous waterway illegally, because the United States of America is worth it.
Absolutely.
Amen. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us this evening.